Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're wading into waters that might seem a little beige at first.
Office space.
Office space, exactly. We're talking desks, swivel chairs, those generic art prints you see on the walls.
Meeting rooms with the slightly smudged frosted glass.
It sounds a bit dry, doesn't it?
A little, yeah.
Hold on, because when I tell you that this story involves a deal worth £1.5 billion,
Wow.
a high-stakes game of regulatory chess, and a battle for the most expensive streets in London, well, suddenly those beige walls get a lot more interesting.
It's a massive deal. I mean, it's a classic case study in how big business actually works, behind the scenes. It's about the mechanics of monopoly and how governments try to manage it.
Exactly. So today we are unpacking a report on the merger between two giants, Regus and Avanta Serviced Office Group.
And we're pulling this from a report featured by MoveAndStay.com.
Which is a really perfect source for this, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you think about who really gets the nuts and bolts of business travel and relocation, it's them.
Right. They've been doing this for, over 25 years?
Exactly. They connect business travelers with extended stay solutions. So service departments, hotels, and of course what we're talking about today, serviced offices.
They know how vital a ready-to-use workspace is for a corporate team just landing in a new city.
Totally. It's not just booking a room. It's about finding a place to live and work, sometimes for months. So they really know this terrain.
So the mission for this deep dive is, I think, pretty clear. We want to understand not just the staggering money involved, and again, £1.5 billion is not nothing.
Not at all.
But the regulatory battle. We're looking at how a merger this big actually impacts the average person who's just looking for a desk somewhere in London.
Precisely. It's that tension between a company getting bigger and the consumer having choices. It's what happens when the big fish tries to eat the medium fish and the referee steps in.
Okay, so before we get into the drama, let's do a quick definition. The text talks about serviced offices. Unpack that for us. This isn't just renting an empty room, right?
No, not at all. Think of it as the hotelification of the workplace. You're not just paying for square footage. You're paying for an entire operational ecosystem.
An ecosystem. That sounds fancy.
Well, it is, in a way. I mean, with the traditional office, you get 4 walls and a key. You have to sort out the internet, hire cleaners, buy furniture.
Right.
In a serviced office, like the ones Move and Stay finds for people, you walk in and it's all done. The internet is on, there's a receptionist, utilities are managed, the coffee is hopefully hot.
That's plug and play.
It's exactly that.
Yeah.
And for a lot of businesses like startups or international teams, that flexibility is worth a premium. You don't want a 10-year lease. You just want to get to work.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, so that's the product. Now for the players. We have Regus. I mean, if you've walked through a business district anywhere on Earth, you've seen their logo.
They are the Godzilla of this industry, just a massive global footprint.
And they decide they want to buy Avanta Serviced Office Group. The price tag on the table, around £1.5 billion.
A huge valuation. And you have to ask, why that much? It signals that Regus saw immense value in what Avanta had. This wasn't just buying a few extra buildings.
No.
This was about taking a serious competitor off the map.
Right. And as you said, there's always a referee. Or maybe a hero, depending on your view. Enter the CMA.
The Competition and Markets Authority.
The regulator with the whistle.
A whistle that can stop a billion-pound game in its tracks. The CMA's job is basically to ask, if we let this happen, does the market stop working for consumers?
And in this case, they looked at the deal and said, hang on a minute.
Exactly. They identified what they called competition concerns.
Let's talk about that, because for some people, this just sounds like bureaucracy. Regus has the money. Avanta wants to sell. Why does the government care?
Well, the text lays out the why really clearly. The CMA worries that if one company controls too much of the market, you get 3 really specific bad outcomes for the customer.
Okay, what are they? What happens to the person trying to rent the desk?
First, increased prices.
Naturally. If I'm the only game in town, I can charge what I want?
That's it. Second is reduced choice.
Meaning I can't vote with my wallet. If I don't like the terms, where else do I go?
Nowhere. You're captured. And the third one, and this is the one people often forget, is a decline in quality.
Right. This is the nightmare scenario.
It really is.
I'm picturing it now. You're paying more for your office, but the coffee machine's been broken for 3 weeks, the carpet's stained, and when you complain, management just shrugs because where else are you going to go?
That is exactly the scenario the CMA exists to prevent. Quality comes from the fear of losing customers to the guy across the street. If you buy the guy across the street,
You can stop fixing the coffee machine.
you can stop fixing the coffee machine. The incentive to be good just kind of evaporates.
That is such a crucial point. So the CMA is thinking this deal might lead to a lot of expensive rent and broken coffee machines in London. But here's where it gets interesting. They didn't say this was a problem everywhere, did they?
No, and this is key to how this stuff works. It's often very, very geographical. The CMA zoomed in on a really specific map.
The geography of monopoly.
I like that. Yes.
Yeah.
They identified specific danger zones in central London.
Let's list them, because if you know London, these names just scream business.
Okay, so the list is Hammersmith, Victoria, Canary Wharf, and the Docklands, Euston and King's Cross, and Paddington.
Right. So why these spots? Why does it matter if Regus owns all the offices in Paddington, but not, some suburb 20 miles out?
It's because of the user. Think about the businesses Move-In Stay serves. If you're a finance firm, you need to be Canary Wharf. Your clients are there. You can't just move to a village in the Cotswolds because the rent is cheaper.
Your location is part of the product.
Exactly. It's a non-negotiable feature. These areas are distinct markets. King's Cross for transport links, Canary Wharf for the banks. They aren't interchangeable. Economists call them cluster markets.
That's a great point. A cheap office in Croydon is no substitute for an expensive one in Victoria if your main client is 5 minutes from Victoria Station.
Precisely. So the CMA realized that in these specific pockets, the merger would create a kind of mini monopoly.
So they're saying you can merge, but you can't have a stranglehold on these specific neighborhoods.
Correct. They told Regus, you have a problem. And if you don't fix it, we are launching a full Phase 2 investigation.
Okay, we have to explain what that means, because Phase 2 sounds like a corporate headache.
It's a massive headache. It's like a root canal, but for a corporation. And it's performed by lawyers.
Ouch. So what does it involve?
A Phase 1 review is a quick look,
Right.
a screening. Phase 2 is a deep forensic audit. It takes months, costs millions in legal fees. They demand thousands of internal emails, strategy documents. They interview your customers, your competitors.
It just paralyzes the business.
Completely.
Yeah.
And at the end of it all, they might just block the deal anyway. So you've spent all that time and money for nothing.
So Regus is staring down the barrel of that. What do?
They try to buy approval.
That sounds illegal.
Well, let's call it offering remedies. But
Yeah.
yeah, effectively, they have to pay a price to get the green light. They came back with a set of undertakings,
Yeah.
promises.
And the main one is a sell-off.
Yes. The primary solution was to divest. They proposed selling off Avanta's office centers in those danger zones, Victoria, Canary Wharf, and so on, to a suitable third-party buyer.
This is fascinating. So to buy the company, they have to give away some of its most valuable parts.
It's the cost of doing business. They must have calculated that owning the rest of Avanta and just eliminating them as a competitor was worth losing those prime spots.
I want to pause on that phrase, suitable third-party buyer. Why does the CMA care who buys it? Why not just sell it to, I don't know, a friend's company?
Great question. The CMA is very strict. The buyer has to be a viable competitor. If they sell it to a company that has no idea how to run offices, that company might fail.
And then the competition disappears anyway.
Exactly. They need to restore the rivalry that the merger destroyed.
Yeah.
They're essentially engineering the market to keep it competitive.
Now, speaking of engineering, there's this one detail in the source that I found so interesting. The Hammersmith exception.
Ah, yes. The behavioral undertaking. This is where it gets really nerdy, but it's fascinating.
It just stood out because it's so granular. We're talking a $1 billion deal, and suddenly we're focused on a single building.
So usually the CMA prefers what are called structural remedies,
Yeah.
like selling the building. It's clean, you sell it, you're done, competition is restored.
Simple.
But sometimes you can't just sell a building. Maybe the lease is complicated. We don't know the exact details here, but for some reason, selling the Hammersmith location was a problem.
So Regus is stuck with it.
Okay.
But if they keep it, they have a monopoly in Hammersmith.
Right. So they offered a behavioral promise instead.
And what did that promise entail?
They promised that, specifically at the Hammersmith Center, they would not increase prices and they would not decrease the quality of service.
That is wild.
It is. It's essentially rent control applied to a single office building as part of a merger deal.
So the government, through the CMA, is basically telling a private company, you can keep this building, but you can't raise the rent, and you better make sure the cleaners show up.
And it's extremely specific. And the text notes this applies particularly if Avanta's lease is terminated early and they can't find a buyer. It's a safety net. The CMA is basically saying, We don't trust the market here because you are the market.
It just shows you how deep these things go. It's not just CEOs on a golf course. It's lawyers arguing over the cost of a hot desk in one building in Hammersmith.
And that's what protects the consumer, really.
So where does this leave us in the process? The report mentions a pretty tight deadline.
February 1st, 2016.
That was the line in the sand.
That was the date the CMA set to decide if these promises, the sell-off and the Hammersmith price cap, were good enough.
And it's not just the CMA deciding, right?
Yeah.
Text mentions a public consultation.
Yes, which is a vital part of it.
Mm.
The CMA basically says, okay, here's what Regus has promised. What does everyone think? Does this actually solve the problem?
I always wonder who actually responds to those things.
You'd be surprised. Competitors definitely do. If you're a smaller rival, you absolutely write in. You might say, hey, selling that one building isn't enough.
Right, a chance to throw a wrench in the gears.
Or customers. A tenant in an Avanta building might write in saying, I chose Avanta because I don't like Regus. Don't let them buy my building.
Save me from the beige walls.
Exactly. But the stakes are clear. If the CMA accepts the undertakings, the deal goes through. If they reject them,
Phase 2.
phase 2, the long, expensive nightmare.
So Regus is highly motivated to make this work.
Absolutely. The last thing they want is uncertainty.
You know, stepping back, this whole story really changes how I look at the office market.
How so?
Well, you look for an office or an apartment, on a site like Move and Stay, and you just see the price. You think, oh, rent is high because, well, it's London.
The invisible hand of the market.
Right. But this shows that the market is sometimes being shaped by these huge deals happening way above our heads. The price of an office in Victoria isn't just about the view. It's about whether the CMA forced a sale 3 years ago.
That's a great insight. The market isn't a force of nature. It's a constructed environment. It's shaped by regulations, by mergers, by these divestments.
It's the butterfly effect. A lawyer writes a clause about a building in Hammersmith, and 5 years later, a freelancer gets a better deal on a desk. So, to wrap up, we have a 1.5 billion pound giant trying to form. We have the CMA saying not so fast in London, and we have Regus agreeing to chop off some of its best bits to get the deal done.
That's the summary, a strategic sacrifice.
Which brings me to one final thought, and I'm curious to get your take on this.
Go on.
If Regus is willing to sell off its centers in Victoria, in Canary Wharf, in Paddington, these are the crown jewels of London real estate.
Absolutely.
If they're willing to lose those just to buy Avanta, what does that tell us about how valuable the rest of Avanta's portfolio must be?
That is the big question.
Or maybe the value isn't in the buildings at all.
And that's where my mind goes. Is the value in the real estate they're keeping? Or is the real value simply in the fact that Avanta stops existing as a competitor?
Right. Is it worth losing a profitable building in Canary Wharf to make sure no one can undercut you on price anywhere else?
It's a question of strategy versus assets.
Yeah.
And sometimes the most valuable thing you can buy is just less competition.
So the 1.5 billion wasn't just for desks and chairs. It was for market dominance.
It usually is.
And on that slightly chilling thought, we will wrap up this deep dive.
Always a pleasure to decode the chess match.
Thanks for listening. Next time you walk into a serviced office, take a look around. There's probably a lot more history in those walls and that rental contract than you think. Catch you on the next deep dive.